Good morning, everyone.
I love that's a good start at the front there.
Good morning. I think we're ready to start.
Ollie.
I remember when your hair used to be that short.
I know. First day of work.
It's a pleasure this morning to be able to ask questions of John and Paul, and I'm sure they're equally relieved because normally when I'm sitting in front of them, I'm pitching them something, so I'm sure they're relieved that honestly, I'm not going to pitch anything up here today. So
Feel free.
It's great to have you guys and to see NATPE alive and vital as much as ever. So guys, let's talk about our business. Do you guys worry about the state of our genre at all? We've had The Voice, we had the X Factor in the last year. I don't think the X Factor quite met the expectations that a lot of people had. A lot of the formats have been aging a bit. And there hasn't been anything other than The Voice and the X Factor really in the last year that's loud and breakthrough. How do we fix it?
Well, first, to your first point, am I worried? I'm not. The alternative television covers such a huge footprint. It's not just competition shows. And it also is a genre that can endlessly reinvent itself. I think that, like all genres, once you think you have the formula, once you start going down a specific path and shows don't differentiate themselves completely from other shows, the audience will tell you that you've become complacent. So I think that that just makes it incumbent on all of us to just continue to experiment. Is it gravely ill? It's not. You know, these shows are still very profitable, they're very popular, they still capture the zeitgeist. So it's not a dire situation, but it is a chance for us to really analyze what we're doing, look at our future development, and make sure that we're staying fresh.
Paul?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I've described, I come from a cultural television background where reality, I always say, reality is still being treated as a novelty in some instances, not by professionals working in television and not by the consumer, but we're talking about something that's was going to burn very hot and then go away, whereas it had been a staple of European broadcasting and global broadcasting to have a mix that included drama and scripted programming, your local soap opera, news, and light entertainment, variety, factual entertainment. This was a novelty to American primetime television about 10 years ago, a bit more than 10 years ago now. And now we're in a part of where, if it is a novelty, the novelty has worn off, but that these shows and these franchises are every bit as beloved as a great sitcom or a great drama. People have just become accustomed to them. And, you know, I always go to one sort of pretty easy example to understand, which is just because there's been one successful cop show doesn't stop you making or trying to develop another successful cop show. And likewise, as we look around the landscape, and yes, some of the kind of granddaddy reality shows are now a decade or, you know, many seasons old, including having been run twice a year in many cases, whether it's Survivor or Bachelor and the Bachelorette or Biggest Loser that's been on in 2 editions a year, Dancing with the Stars twice a year. You know, much has been asked of these shows in terms of audience delivery. And yeah, nothing should stop us from wanting to innovate and take bold swings, but they are going to be similar to other shows that have gone before them by virtue of there's only so many stories to tell anyway. You just come at it from a different vantage point. You apply resources in different places, whether you were relying on celebrity or not. And that, as John rightly points out, it's not just about a contestant pool being whittled down to a winner. There are other things in the genre that, you know, have strengths, particularly from a scheduling point of view. you don't want everything to be a 13 to 15 week series commitment, particularly if you're trying something new. So, and it is in vital health economically. I would say that if you took a snapshot across all of our competitors, probably, maybe with the exception of CBS because of a different mix there and some very successful shows in comedy and drama, the most dollar for dollar profitable part of the business is the alternative business.
Do you think for the longevity of your franchise, for Dancing with the Stars or with Biggest Loser, do you think it would be better to run it once a year than twice a year, moving forward?
No, I think that we sell a commodity, and sometimes when you make a commodity scarcer, the price rises. But I don't think that I think all of those decisions are available to us. You know, if I look at something like The Biggest Loser, where we're candid with ourselves about where we are in its life cycle, and have we asked an awful lot of that brand over the years? Well, by transmitting it 65 hours a year, the answer is yes. Is it a great show? Yes. Does it tell a great story? Yes. Is it transformational? Yes. Does it still make money for the network? Yes. Could it do better? Yes. Are we committed to making that a reality? Yes. And likewise, if I'm in John's chair and I see Biggest Loser as an aging show on another network, because I'm looking at your shows the whole time and thinking, well, where would I go into this market space where previously there's been a category-killing incumbent, and Extreme Makeover Weight Loss Edition was an entry into the health and wellness and the conversation about extreme obesity that happened last summer, actually performed extremely well for you guys, and shows that there is room for the coexistence in genre of certain shows. Voice and Idol, coexisted in the same year part. I wouldn't go with another celebrity ballroom dancing show against a celebrity ballroom dancing show, but we, of course, think about how to refresh aging franchises and also re-enter spaces where we've told stories successfully before.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that to the question of running them twice a year, I think you always have to analyze that. I think that for the two shows that we run twice a year, I think that there's definitely the fall season and the spring season of dancing, and I think they both serve their purposes. And certainly the audience with Bachelor understands that it's going to be a Bachelor in January, it'll be a Bachelorette in the summer, and I think that those are distinctive enough, and I think that there is enough audience expectation that there's no reason to change that.
What about the talent competition genre? Do you think we've played it out? I mean, we got Voice, X Factor, Idol, AGT. Room for more?
Well, again, maybe not at the same time, but if you think about, let's think about television in chunks of 10 years for a start. You can go back into recent American television history and you can invoke Star Search, The Gong Show. There are other, this wasn't, to be blunt, a revolutionary genre when Idol entered the market. It was something that just in terms of its own DNA, was probably the third iteration of a singing competition show within a 5-year period, actually probably in the UK. So whatever it is, if these are like trains coming into the station and backing up a bit, well, they tend to find space to you get the trains on the tracks a bit more evenly spaced. There is more room. I believe that I wouldn't be rushing headlong into another singing competition show or another talent show, but if it was special and it had, I would never say never in that particular genre, because you're able to tap into some pretty primal entertainment instincts of the consumer at home and immediacy and all sorts of things. So.
Yeah, again, I think it's the point that you made before. I'm not sure drama execs ever say we're never going to do a drama set in a hospital again. We're never going to do a drama set in a police precinct again. Right. I don't think comedy execs ever say we are never going to do a situational comedy that revolves around a family. There are certain shows that are just uniquely scaled to a television screen, and just as Modern followed Raymond, followed Cosby, with a lot of others in there, and just as Gray's and China Beach and ER. Talent shows do occupy the screen perfectly. You know, there's a lot of play along, there's a lot of pure performance, there's a lot of texture, there can be criticism. So again, I'm not sure that anyone can ever be in a position to say we're never doing something.
Right.
I think you just have to judge everything by the merits.
I am in development still with, probably 2 or 3 competitive competition reality series in the talent space. Just, they have to be reimaginings and they have to have a reason to be on air. John and I, when I was a producer and John was at ABC, we looked at the DNA of Dancing with the Stars and we felt, oh, we've got to try something. And we've created some stars in Bruno and Carrie-Anne, and we had. They're massive, universally recognizable names. And we tried to kind of offshoot their skill set and personalities into another show. You know what? Did it succeed? By today's metrics, it's a massive hit.
Yeah.
By the time but you try and you reiterate in the same space, and some work and some don't. Some fail spectacularly, some less so. So, no, I think it's a busy marketplace, a very competitive marketplace. I don't believe it's saturated. Busy and competitive are 2 very good words in business.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. As far as trends go, have you seen, it's interesting, over the years, you always feel like things are in the air, ideas are in the air. All of a sudden, people are pitching a particular show. It's got little changes, little differences, but they're kind of the same show, and I'm sure you see that. Are you seeing any trends, like lately, people bringing a lot of a certain type of show to you?
Well, again, I think that everyone, smart producers are looking at the ratings, performance of shows on everyone's air and looking for opportunity, either in terms of replacing incumbents or entering the marketplace. And again, as let's say you have some franchises that may be in the kind of sustain, stay alive part of their life as a television program, and age will do that. But this is a medium where novelty and what's new and what's next is not just part of the conversation and amongst network executives, it's part of the conversation with the consumer. So if there's a trend, it's definitely, and for me, not to endlessly invoke the voice, but what we found out was that the voice said to people about its comparisons to other singing competition shows out there is, oh, well, it's kind of fresh and different, and it's got, I get why it earned its right to be on air. And they'll say, this is the voice of parenting, or this is the voice of The Bachelor, or whatever they're reinterpreting it. And what they're basically saying is, we're going to come at it in a slightly fresh way, spend a bit more money, and have a bit more fun doing it. Or we're going to add elements that give it traction with audiences. On a specific programming trend is people are looking to pick off some of the dinosaurs waddling around and come in with new things. So I see versions or in genre, sometimes imitators, sometimes derivers, but hopefully one will come in with a spectacular idea that is able to tell. The Survivor story is Lord of the Flies. The Bachelor story is The Ultimate Romance in the Rose. Biggest Loser, the triumph over a disease that will kill you, morbid obesity. The storytelling fiber to these have some similarities. And then in the case of, I think, Dancing with the Stars, the ability, or Celebrity Apprentice, the ability to bring in a whole new reason to talk to the country about it, i.e., personalities and celebrities that people care about, don't care about, love to hate, and all of those things.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, again, I think you and the creative community know that I'm not looking for companion shows to the shows we already have on the air. So I think that, I think that the pitches that I get are pretty selectively chosen. So in that regard, there hasn't really been a lot of trends. I think that there's been a lot of interesting stuff. I think that there's been a lot of interesting pitches where Producers are striving to come up with a way to tell a classic story in a new format.
Right.
But I haven't really felt trends the way I have perhaps in years past.
You have the sort of the holy grail in the dating and relationship area with the Bachelor franchise, Bachelorette franchise, and there have been so many attempts to find the next great dating and relationship show. And Paul, you renewed Love in the Wild and have some other things going on. Is there one out there? Is there some great new breakthrough dating and relationship format out there?
I'm sure that there is. I think to a certain extent, competitive reality shows are almost like sports leagues. And I think that once one becomes a dominant player, it's hard to imagine another league taking over again. It's almost like if you have the NFL, you don't necessarily need Arena League football. And Bachelor it's a huge sporting event for women. Right. So just like dancing is a celebrity ballroom show, just like Top Chef is, a high-end cooking show. And so it's more a question of, can you have multiple versions in the same arena? And I think sometimes you can. I think The Voice, showed that you can find a way to create a new league inside of an area that's already been occupied. So listen, romance and dating, they're universal. Of course there's another show out there, and of course there's another one that's going to work. For us, we still think that there's a lot of life in the Bachelor and Bachelorette franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with John. I mean, we renewed Love in the Wild because frequently, I think that in the development processes of large media companies, one of the criticisms that creators and one of the criticisms we level at ourselves is that we're impatient, that we'll tear shows off air that aren't working, and that we won't kind of dig in around a creative process. It's just like, this didn't deliver on expectations, let's move on. Well, actually, with Love in the Wild, what we found with our partners Endemol is we'd arrived somewhere, and I'll be honest, an entire season of Love in the Wild is probably roughly equivalent in budget to one monster pilot that could be, take your pick, which major creators would be involved in that one pilot a year, whether it was Lost that cost 10 million or whatever. About the same cost as a big swing in drama was an entire season of Love in the Wild. And with that amount of data and that amount of feedback, having put it out on air in a pretty protected time slot where it broke even or made us a bit of money, we learned so much from that show in making it. And what we learned was that actually this is a completely viable and very, very distinctly different show to The Bachelor, which we obviously was part of the intent as we went into it. It's like, we're not going to copy those guys. That show works. People love that show. I'm not going to ape it. I have to be different to be in the same conversation. We learned so much from that first pilot season, I would now call it, that ourselves and Endemol decided, you know what? This is worth another shot, because we identified some hardcore fans. They told us what they liked about the show. They told us what they didn't like about the show. And then us as producers were able to take a look at it and go, well, we know what was missing here, whether it's subtleties of casting, subtleties of production. So would we like to enter the dating space and the relationship space? For all the reasons John says, it's a part of, particularly in a young female demographic, or not even that young a female demographic, relationships, the quest for love, the search for affinity, connection, all these different things, are an obsession. It's like Sex in the City reruns.
Yeah.
We've got to we'll keep trying in the space until
Well, I mean, I have to admit, from a seller standpoint, it is admirable to see you, support a show that maybe is on the bubble and give it a second chance, because I don't think that happens very often anymore. Tartikoff was always known for doing that. If he believed in something, like the Seinfelds of the world that didn't start off all that well, but believed there was something there, a diamond in the rough, and give it a second chance. So I think for you guys to, believe in your shows that way and give them second starts is, really, people like myself, is very admirable.
That was certainly the case for us with Shark Tank, which isn't a show that went through any dramatic reimagining. It was a really good show from the very beginning. But
yeah.
it's based on a very successful international format. But again, it was that belief and faith in the show, and I think it was the feedback from passionate fans that now in its third season of whatever 42%.
Never bought it from me when I had the rights. No, I mean, I think that sometimes we don't have the luxury in a lot of year parts or day parts to let things kind of find an audience and then grow and get buzzed about. But once in a while, whether you found real estate on a Friday night, summer real estate where you can allow things, tend the garden in a different way, make a few tweaks, change some talent out, learn from the previous years, happy days. And if it's making money for a network and it makes sense on paper and creatively, we should be doing more of that.
Yeah, and all credit to CBS. That's always been their model.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, I think they stuck with a couple of franchises.
Yes.
And they're reaping the dividends now.
Yeah. When you talk about real estate, the real estate that seems to be sort of an enigma out there is Saturday nights. Still the biggest night of television in the UK. Some of the biggest shows still air on Saturday night there. Is that an area that you guys are thinking about? I mean, people talk about it, but is it something that you would really like to find a solution to in the non-scripted area?
I'll start with saying I'm careful though, and I looked at this weekend's Saturday night rating, and I want to be honest, I never thought I'd be saying this, but I am now 5 years in. I'd be very jealous of Fox's ability to program Saturday night with, a show that kind of probably was an earlier part of defining Fox's brand, Cops.
Right.
Now let's see, a 1.516 rating for the show. And that's real programming with a real rating for that.
20 some odd years in already.
20 some, yeah. And, I've got a very important show on Saturday night that has a very late start time in SNL.
Right.
And I can't help but have aspirations for prime time on Saturday night because, the things that benefit Saturday Night Live's ratings tend to be things that keep young men in circulation later at night on a Saturday night than normal. So we see spikes in our ratings when these guys have college football on.
Sure.
So the flow is also something that's important. And, sometimes I look at Saturday night, which is repeats normally of dramas, and think, this isn't building a night. So I have aspirations for Saturday night. I have no clue what they are, and the economics are a complete enigma.
Yeah.
But there is an available audience out there. I find myself sometimes on Saturday night.
Right.
Big TiVo night, though, as well. It's a big catch-up on DVR. If you are busy during the week and you are watching Saturday night, find the Wednesday through Friday part of the schedule being caught up on a lot by busy working people. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. The economics for Saturday night are very, very difficult. And also, there's cultural influences that I think we've sort of lost on the broadcast space. I don't think people know to go to broadcast television for entertainment on a Saturday night. I think we squandered an opportunity there. Certainly when you look in the UK, or if you look in Germany, Saturday night can be huge, but there's still a lot of those cultural influences that makes it a really viable.
Until we find the right show that brings the eyeballs and then build from that.
Well, it's going to take a little bit more than just one show.
Yes, and Saturday night in the UK draws on a kind of a part of prime time. Coincided with when most of the main football games, what we call football, what the world calls soccer, football games were finishing. The results coming in from those were sort of eventized, almost like a lottery ball drop. And primetime started very early on Saturday, and the audience always just stayed and growed and growed. that would be like having the Sunday night football on Saturday.
Yeah, yeah.
So there are structural things that are real differences. There is a large available audience. We see it in the Spanish-speaking networks doing
Yes,
extremely well on Saturday night. There's the opportunity for co-viewing. Bluntly, we have problems elsewhere in our schedule that mean it's not an immediate focus, but something to think about.
Well, you can't always, to have the Saturday conversation, you also have to have the Friday night conversation. And I think that the broadcast networks have turned a corner with Friday night. I think that there was a couple years
Thank
ago,
goodness,
there was a chance that Friday night was going to become another Saturday night.
Yeah.
But I think when you see, Grimm or Shark Tank or our news shows or Fox running Original Kitchen Nightmares on the night, and viewership, although it's much less than other nights, it can be a profitable night for us.
There's 9 or 10 rating points right there that he talked about in 4 shows. And that means the right product mix, stay in business on Friday night, maybe get a bit more of a beachhead there. I feel like if someone dared to put a hit show on Friday night would look really different.
Lots of opportunity.
We're getting there.
It's good. Tell me, each of you, about which show you bought and put on the air. Biggest surprise, positive, biggest disappointment.
Shit.
It's an extremely humbling job. I'm sure, Dance Wars one example. I think that there are a lot of shows where all your instincts are pointing towards this is the exact right show at the exact right time, and then it clanks. And I think that there's a bizarre serendipity to a show that works. I think almost every show that we've had on that works was a fantastic surprise. And to be honest with you, with a few exceptions that I won't go into, I think most of the shows that have completely failed have been massive disappointments. I think that there are a few, it does become a little bit of a runaway train, and the air date's approaching, and you're strapped in at that point. There's nothing you can do about it, and the inevitable collision happens. But I think for the most part, the producers, us as a network, we all go into these shows with unbelievably high, or at least hopeful expectations. So it's a constant disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be bonkers if I didn't say The Voice was something that came as a bit... I think it came as a surprise to the industry, and it came as a surprise to the consumer. And part of that was strategic because of the time of the year that we chose to launch it, the speed with which we put it to air, and then what I have to say, an enlightened and incredibly bold marketing strategy around late deployment. This is get very, very, very close to your enemy before you start shooting at them kind of approach to the marketing. It was 10 days out, we dropped the first off-air media and bought media for The Voice. And we had no one watching NBC in terms of pure circulation for months before. So our promos were just playing to the same people over and over. And I'm sure John lives in the same world of tracking research where someone comes in every week and gives you the portends of doom about what's about to happen to your show based on statistics. And it's known in my company that what was being told us about tracking an intent for The Voice on the very night it aired meant that I was starting to put stuff in boxes in my office, and let's say the swing was the other way. Yeah. That was a great day, and I'm absolutely with John on the kind of things that, is the one that got away? They all got away when they fail, and you work so hard with teams that, in the most part of the suppliers that we work with, they really care about their work, they really want to win, and they really want to help us in our jobs do great work. And sometimes you do put a stinker in there as well. We've all had things that we've paid for that we would love to have the trash can that you have on your Apple that you can just drag it into and it just goes poof, and you never have to think about it again. But unfortunately, we spend a lot of money on these things, and sometimes we put things to air that we probably have different instincts about, but we, needs must.
I think that, and really it is, I'm not saying this because I'm a seller to Brown Nose, you guys, but seriously, you guys are great examples of taking chances and succeeding, which I don't think happens a lot in our business. I mean, Dancing with the Stars was, because I was involved, Paul was involved, that was pitched and repitched and repitched. And The Voice was something I know you believed in very strongly, and that had its naysayers because of the state of the industry and when you were going to put on, and it worked. And it's a tribute again to both you guys for taking the chance and showing people in the business that if you do take chances, you can succeed, you know?
Well, I think that that's the world of broadcast we live in. I live in a world that's, let's say, one spot worse than ABC. We're a network that has got some challenges ahead of it, and I think that our current proprietors and the kind of the new NBC as a company understands that trying to move NBC in any way meaningfully in a positive direction is going to require risk-taking. Not the rampant deployment of resources, but sensible bets. I've been trying to move people away from the language of gambling as it comes to television, because I really don't think it is throwing chips down on a roulette wheel. I really don't think it is rolls of the dice. We apply as much method as we can in a world of madness. And, but it feels probably fewer, bigger swings.
Yeah.
It's a cliche that is trotted out, but it is certainly the reality I live in. As we pull the trigger on something, forget the cost of production. You're pretty well matching production money with marketing money at the moment, and also the amount of internal resources just on a pure bodies running around making stuff happen every time you launch a show is like starting a mid-sized company from scratch on day one when you green light it. And it should always be frightening and exciting.
It's definitely, I mean, that's, I think, what's really helped the cable business build itself is exactly what you said, you know, bigger, less, but bigger swings, you know, with heavy duty marketing. Anything coming up that you guys want to talk about at all to get the eyeballs all ready to come to the screen?
Well, you know, I think our big programming moves for the foreseeable future are kind of like out there in terms of the shows that we've ordered for the summer and the shows that we're launching between now and the end of the season. There's a number of panels about this show, Fashion Star, that we're launching in March. It's a show that I've described as giving me the same queasy feeling I had when I first saw Dancing with the Stars, which is it's fusing elements that feel narrow with elements that feel incredibly broad and accessible. It's very, very, should we say, has a very, very well polished production veneer on it. It comes from the Magical Elves and Electus, and it's definitely a big swing for us. You'll start to see that from a marketing perspective. And it's also got wrapped up in it, and there's probably 7 panels on it. Bold innovation in the transactional side of it and the kind of brand extensions and partnerships that are involved in it, which can be kind of executive speak for we got lots of money from lots of different people to make the show. Not the case. We paid for every dime of production. Everything else is kind of to make it bigger.
Yep, absolutely.
And then I can't deny I'm excited about Howard Stern's arrival on America's Got Talent, because there's a show that has sat in a year part and I think sort of been a little undernourished and underappreciated because I mean, I watch it with my kids. I love the show myself, and on a personal level, in the company felt I occasionally had to defend it as a piece of television because it is a certain kind of show. And I think that Howard will bring not just new viewers and curiosity. I think it will bring some noise to a show that deserved some noise. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the kind of near future.
Yeah, I think that to sort of mirror what we've been talking about, I think franchise management is incredibly important. You know, keeping these series alive and fresh. And so I'm excited about where dancing is going to be going in this next cycle. I'm very excited about the episodes we've seen so far on Weight Loss Edition. You know, we perceive that there still could be some room for growth in Shark Tank. I think that, you know, the existing franchise is doing really well, and the development's healthy.
Before I turn it over to, do we have time for questions? Okay, perfect. Besides one of your own, give me one or two of your favorite non-scripted series.
Oh, geez, so many. I think the Monday Night on History is fantastic. A lot of the TLC shows. I mean, there's too many to really just.
I know, we're kind of geeks, if we're honest. Our TiVos look like the DVRs of true madmen, because we also have children. So I'm like, you know, between Phineas Ferb, I love Gold. I've fallen in love with Gold Rush, and the sheer boldness of having a companion show, which I also watched up, and I do frequently get into cable. I watch a lot of cable. I don't honestly watch many of the broadcast reality TV franchises. I'm too busy watching my own and working on my own. But for pleasure, you know, I love the soup. I still like the Kardashians in a kind of, you know, completely guilty, perverse way. But I can't single out a favorite either, to be honest. We watch so much of it.
Yeah. Anyone have
Is there a show I want, though?
Yeah, what do you want?
You had to bring that one up.
What? I always bring that one up. I like that one. I don't know what I'd do. I think I would, if I could pinch a show from another network in some sort of crazy dawn raid, I think I would go for Survivor. Because I feel like I just admire the franchise. I think they've managed to unlock new storytelling. I look at its rating, and it's probably the one that is fighting secular decline the best. But that would be the one I'd steal from CBS.
And you? What would you steal, John?
It's funny when they came up on another panel. I think Survivor, because it occupies the space that it lives in perfectly, and it's, you know, it's been the same show. I think the audience knows what to expect with it, and it constantly delivers everything that the audience is expecting. But I think
what I love about it is I find it's joinable even if you've missed a couple of seasons,
Right,
because it's the reality of our busy lives is we're not always going to commit to 16 straight weeks of something, or, you know, we can't. You know, so-and-so's got a soccer game, you're on a business trip, we all have the same sort of things going on. John says it occupies a space that I think it's hard to go into without immediately being seen as a total imitator.
Yeah.
We both tried, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, chapters of our lives we'd like to put to rest, but it was kind of to get Lord of the Flies going with that train wreck as well.
Anyone have any questions?
I think we've sufficiently lulled everyone to sleep.
If not, I'll ask more questions then. No questions? Okay, let me ask you guys a couple more questions. So we have about 5 more minutes. How would you say, from each of your networks' perspective, your deals have changed with your suppliers?
Well, the truth is, there is no one-size-fits-all answer to that, because it depends on precisely, and I've been a seller, so I put myself as poacher turned gamekeeper now. It is precisely geared to leverage at time, at place, competition, all sorts of variables. We fully fund reality programming. This is shows where the network pays every dime of cost, where frequently someone comes through production and has identified other areas of expenditure that we call breakage, that we're also on the hook for. We pay for it. We're going to retain rights in it. unless someone has got an incredibly compelling argument, and you know you're well versed in those arguments, but I would be insane as part of a company the size that I'm a part of not to be thinking about the interests of our cable networks in terms of repurposed runs, not to be thinking about an exploitation cycle that is the off-network rights and frequently valuable merchandising and ancillary rights that everyone in the room is going to be arguing about who's better at doing. But there are times when the person that's writing the check for every single dime of content creation is going to ask for a little bit more. And I think we've entered those times. Most people understand it doesn't drive all of our decisions. But you walk into our place with the right piece of talent and something that's in the realms of the undeniable, the deal's going to look just a little bit better for the seller than the buyer. So the good news is I think that I'd say this about your business affairs team because I've worked with them and my own, we are adaptable creatures, and we have personal relationships with so many people in our business that we are able to find a way to a signature on a piece of paper and hopefully stay out of court as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's the most important point. I think, when you think about it, most of the key players have been doing this now for about 11 years. So when you think of, most of the agents that we do business with, when you think of, Jana and Carrie at our shop in business affairs, when you think of most of the producers, I think that there's enough of a relationship there that, yes, the deals have become much, much tougher. And I think that there's, I think everyone's had to share a certain amount of pain. But I think most of the deals end up in that sort of vague place where everyone's just slightly unhappy, which is probably the best place for deals to end up. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you're in a whole different world of pain if it's a hit.
Yeah.
The docusoap, other than maybe Simple Life, really hasn't been one that's worked. And I know there's an aversion to buying them. What do you think about putting the right what you think might be the right docusoap? Do you think it could work? Or is it meant for cable?
I mean, we look at the ratings in cable for, cable's biggest hits. And let's just start with the obvious ones, Jersey Shore and the Kardashians. Would those from day one have ever been able to be hits on network television? And the answer for me is absolutely not. They were a unique product of the ability of, partly from a content point of view, partly from a scheduling point of view, the ability to get a cumulative audience and build momentum and get traction. That's just not the broadcast business model. And also, these are franchises that are very successful. Let's take the Real Housewives franchise on Bravo, that are flourishing and in rude health on cable assets that are part of the same organization as mine. So what I worry about is, I think that a broadcast audience is habituated to seeing shows with a tone that doesn't necessarily always jibe with what's most fun if you're a fan of Real Housewives of Atlanta like me. I can't put that on NBC, but can I watch it? Yes. We get pitched these a lot, and they normally are built around personalities or families. Oh, it's the real Knots Landing, or it's this, or, And I think we've all attempted them. In my time at NBC, we haven't done one, but they did do one called The Vineyard, or I don't know whether it ever aired. You've done a couple. Your news division's done one. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but they don't feel sticky enough for broadcast.
Yeah, I think that for on cable, John and I were just talking about this earlier today. I think on cable you have the ability to run these often enough that you get hooked into the characters and the stories. Whether it's through a Saturday marathon or whether it's due to the fact that a lot of them will air 3 or 4 nights a week. I think that they have themselves to promote off of, so that there's an audience expectation, for instance on Bravo or TLC, that, one show can promote into another show, whereas for us it would be a little bit of a departure. Mm-hmm. But again, like all genres, I think you'd be an idiot to ever say, no, we could never do that. I don't think you could ever become blind to any aspect, any genre. And so, yes.
If Prince William and Kate Middleton allowed me unfettered access to their lives for 6 months, would I put that on?
course.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kardashians, much as I adore them, are in exactly the right place, and they are huge where they are.
Great.
So,
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. It's always interesting. It's always great spending time with both of you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
thank you.